An Indian businessman, Ashok Kumar, who has been battling the Interior Ministry over his residence and work permits, has been deported to his home country. His wife tells Joy News immigration officers stormed their home on Sunday morning to forcibly remove him, breaking into their house with concrete blocks in the process. According to Gifty Adanka, the 6 immigration officers physically assaulted her before they took her husband away to the Kotoka International Airport to board a flight to India. The deportation comes days after the Supreme Court quashed a decision by an Accra High Court restoring the residence and work permit of the Indian businessman. The Ghanaian wife of the businessman says she is yet to overcome Sunday morning's trauma.
Well, actually yesterday I got back from church around 9:30. So I was inside my bedroom trying to change. Then Ashok Kumar came in and was like, "Did you hear a noise outside?" And I said, "No, I didn't hear anything." Suddenly I saw a guy peek through our bedroom window. He climbed a ladder and peeked through the window and said to me that, he didn't directly say to me, he just said, "Open the door." So I said, I was kind of shocked though, so I was like, "Open the door." He says, "Yes, open the door." And I said, "I'm not going to open the door till I speak to my lawyer." He says, "I don't take orders from you."
Okay. At that point, why did you mention your lawyer? Who was this person who was, peeping through your bed?
Because he was in a uniform, so I assume he's an immigration officer.
Okay. What kind of uniform was he in? Okay.
It was a green color. So he says, "I will not take directions from you. I will not take orders from you." Then he picked a block and he started smashing the door, hitting the door until the door broke. And he came in. And so while he was hitting the door, I tried to take a photo because I was shocked that a thing of that sort could happen. And moreover, he didn't even show us anything that some kind of warrant or something. He came in and he says I should give my phone to him. I said I will not. He didn't even ask, "Give me your phone." He just attacked me, forcefully trying to take the phone from me. So I said, "I'm not going to give you my phone." And he twisted my arm, pushed me down the couch, and I was also trying to hold my phone from him, and he started smacking me, and eventually they collect my phone, and they went through the bedroom also and took and dragged Ashok out. See, my cheek here, it was swelling yesterday, so I had to go to the hospital. Very traumatized. I feel mistreated. I feel like I'm a Ghanaian being mistreated in my home, in my own land. I feel like they don't even take me into consideration. I'm a Ghanaian, so I don't even know whether the law doesn't even protect Ghanaians or what. The law, I don't know whom the law is supposed to be protecting. It's so crazy. It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable that I'll be treated like this. And moreover, Ashok is such, I wish you had the opportunity to meet him. He's such a nice person. This guy is such a lovely guy. He can't even hurt a fly. It's really painful. It's really painful.
Sorry. But have you reported this incident to the police? Sorry.
Yes, yesterday I did.
What did the police say?
They had asked me to go for the medical. They've given me a medical form, so I went to the hospital.
These are some of the workers from the company owned by the Indian businessman. They are not happy about what happened on Sunday morning. A lot of them say when the Indian businessman is forced to leave this country, they would also lose their source of livelihoods. And that is what is triggering this demonstration here at his workplace this morning.
I have 2 kids and a wife to take care of. Without this, our job is not going to go anywhere. I don't know how we're going to survive. So please, plead with the government. Whatever they have to do, you have to intercede on our behalf. We should bring back our boss.
We are pleading. We just want to beg the president, Mr. President, that he should intervene.
All right, so it turns out there's more to the deportation of Ashok Sivaram, who's also known as Ashok Kumar. The Indian businessman has been fighting his deportation for some time now, and indeed, this is the second time he's been deported. Joining us is Joseph Akable, has been following the story from the onset and joins me in the studio with the background. Now, Joseph, it's not very often you hear the deportation of a personality with a profile of this Indian businessman. What's the backstory?
So our information we've been able to gather comes from a petition he sent to the presidency in August 2017. Now, in that petition, he had called that the president intervenes to ensure that the Immigration Service and the Interior Minister restores his work and residence permits. In that petition, he had again alleged that he has a company, Jamai Communications. He said that he owns that company with a colleague of his. And what happened was that the colleague wanted out of their company. So they decided to take the matter up to court. The court appointed someone to carry out the evaluation exercise.
Okay, so from what we're gathering from this petition is that they're business partners. They own the company together.
Yes.
And at some point, he said he wanted out.
Yes.
One party said he wanted out.
One party said he wanted out. So they decided to take the matter up to court for the court to decide how they will split in terms of the assets, in terms of the money in the company, how much they should share it among themselves because they couldn't reach an agreement. So the matter has been on in court for some time. According to Mr. Sivaram, he says one time he was engaging his business partner. His business partner threatened that he could have him deported out of the country if he dares him. Now he says in that petition to the president that shortly afterwards he was arrested by officers of the Ghana Immigration Service and deported from the country.
Right. This story became of interest to us when we realized that it was the Attorney General at some point who had to go to court to...
So you had the lawyers from the Attorney General's department representing the Ghana Immigration Service.
Okay. And so this case has traveled quite a while. He was deported and then he was brought back into the country. So
right after his deportation, the very first deportation, when the work and residence permit was revoked, his lawyers quickly rushed to court. They asked for judicial review that the court takes a second look at the decision by the minister who did the deportation and the Immigration Service that carried out the revocation. Just before the court came out with a decision, he had been deported. Then the court ruled that the minister acted unreasonably in not offering him a fair hearing when they realized that they claimed that his marriage certificate is fake, for which reason they decided to deport him, and he had used that to apply for his work and residence permit. So the court had held that they should have allowed him an opportunity to be heard on the matter rather than just moving directly to deport him. So on that basis, the court quashed the deportation and the revocation of the license.
Right. So even though Ashok has a wife, and we've been speaking with the wife who attests to the fact that they're a couple, they're saying that the state essentially says that
the marriage certificate is not it's a fake one. Yes. So it was on that basis that they have been carrying out this deportation, we are told. So when the court quashed it, the gentleman was out of the country. So on hearing that decision through his lawyers who represented him in court, he came back into the country.
When did he come into?
This was the latter part of last year, 2017, the latter part of 2017, sometime around September thereabouts. On his return, just when he arrived at the airport, he was picked up again by the Ghana Immigration Service officers.
And detained.
They suspected he was going to be deported. So his lawyers quickly rushed to the High Court and asking for an order directed at the Immigration Service to produce the gentleman in court. So the gentleman, the Immigration Service was asked not to deport the guy and they asked him to bring him to court. So he was brought into the courtroom. Then the question by the judge at that point was, what is the status of the gentleman? Because if you've revoked his license, you've deported him, a court has quashed that, which means that the action was null and void, but the gentleman was outside the country, he has come back. What is his status currently? He's trying to put in an application. Are you granting him that the Immigration Service couldn't provide answers to that? They asked them directly, what is his status? They couldn't tell specifically whether he was here legally or not. So there was some form of void. So on that basis, the judge gave an order that within 7 days, they restore his work and residence permits. Now, within that 7 days, they filed for an appeal at the Court of Appeal, which is still pending. Then again, they headed to the Supreme Court with another action. They went to argue that the court that gave the order, the second order, asking them to restore the license, they don't have jurisdiction in the first place. Their argument had been that it's the Ghana Immigration Service that can revoke someone's residence and work permit, but the Interior Minister carries out deportation. They again said that when your work and residence permit is revoked, you have the opportunity to petition the minister. But the argument by the lawyers for the businessman had been that right when it was revoked, he was deported, so he couldn't have even petitioned the minister in the first place. But the Supreme Court last week ruled that, I mean, the court assumed jurisdiction wrongly because the guy had not exhausted the entire process and he headed to court. So on that basis, they decided to set aside that order requiring the Interior Minister and the Ghana Immigration Service to restore his work and residence permits.
Right, so the Supreme Court ruled last week, and then Sunday it was kicked out of the country. Right, thank you very much, Joseph Akable. And Joseph Akable has been following the story. Now, let's bring you an extract from that petition that Ashok Kumar sent to the President. So it reads, Mr. President, the action of the respondents is a deliberate ploy to render my status in the country without a valid permit in order to easily facilitate my removal from the jurisdiction. And then it continues, this action by the respondents is also a clear attempt to undermine the order for evaluation of the company by the High Court dated May 5, 2017. And then, Mr. President, I implore you as the father of the nation to graciously step in to resolve the matters raised in my petition. And then I shall forever be grateful to you for your prompt action on this matter. So there was a petition that Ashok Kumar sent to the President, but it turns out that not much has become of that petition because at the moment he's out of the country. He was deported on Sunday. We're taking a break here on Joy News Prime, but we have more stories coming your way. The protesting workers of Goldfields have accused management of ordering the military and police to brutalize them during a demonstration over their severance on Monday. So we'll bring you
I see no justification at all for denying, workers, the right to go to work and, and make a living.
Five workers of mining firm Goldfields at Tarkwa in the Western region were injured after shots were fired during a demonstration Monday morning. The workers also accused the military and the police of brutalities during the demonstration. 8 other workers are in police custody for their involvement in the demonstration the police said was illegal. There's more in this report.
The workers were protesting a decision by management of Goldfields Ghana Limited to lay them off, despite an order by the Accra High Court for the action to be stayed pending the determination of the matter by the Appeals Court. Some of the workers tell Joy News management brought in the military to force them to sign the severance agreement. Abdul Mumin Bana is Deputy General Secretary of the Mine Workers Union.
Unfortunately, Goldfields arrogated to itself powers outside of the court and decided to serve these severance letters by force. And in doing that, they did that with the support of the military, armed military. And so arising out of the intimidation on the ground, employees had no choice but to sign these documents under duress. And that is a clear case that we witnessed over the period. And so what brought us together this morning was on the back of the atrocities visited upon us. And if you inflict such pain on workers, certainly we cannot sit aloof. And so we got together in solidarity this morning to demonstrate to Goldfields, to demonstrate to the government of the day, because we have repeatedly raised these issues in the public space. Indeed, we have presented petitions not only to the presidency, but also to the relevant ministries and agencies. And so our expectation was that the government would intervene swiftly to look at the issue and bring it to some amicable settlement. Nonetheless, we realized that the government was hesitant. And so today's demonstration was just in response to the atrocities visited upon us, and also to demonstrate to the government that we have actually been ill-treated. And so it's important that it intervenes swiftly.
A joint police and military force numbering about 200 deployed to the scene are said to have fired on the protesters. One of the injured workers accused their security officers of using brute force on them.
So this morning, we went there, there was no work today. The management of Goldfields Ghana Limited should come in and should sit with the union so that they will negotiate the the good, if only we go out, they should give us our good service. And armed military men attack us. We do not go there even with cane, even stone, we don't have anything. Only what we are holding is only drums that we are holding. And they came in with arms and they started firing. Look at my head. This all some of the results that happened to me with the armed military men and police.
Some of the workers have returned to work whilst others are awaiting directive from the union. Inathalia Kwanzas reports for Joy News.
Well, Goldfields Ghana Limited is accusing leadership of the Mine Workers Union of masterminding the demonstration and manipulating staff to join. Vice President and Head of Stakeholder Relations for the mining firm, David Johnson, tells Joy News members of the association had blocked the entrance to the Atakwa gold mine, preventing workers from going about their normal duties. He added the police had to be called in to restore order as the demonstration, which had been extended to the main road, was disrupting traffic on the Takoradi Kumasi Highway. David John was speaking with Joy News' Bernice Abubedu.
This is what I heard from my contacts on the mine. And I've heard it from more than one person. So the Ghana Mine Workers Union, the executive, the national executives, had actually arranged for cars to be used to block the main access to the mine, which meant that employees who had finished their night shift could not go back home. Employees who were coming in for the morning shift could not get onto the mine. Because they had actually, blocked the road. And I'm not sure if you're familiar with our Atakwa mine, but it's not very far from the actual highway from Kumasi to Takoradi. My understanding is that the traffic, as a result of the blockade, had actually spilled onto the highway, and so cars were not able to go in either direction. I mean, obviously, the police had to be called in because this is a public road that has to be accessed by, all Ghanaians. And also, it's the road that actually leads to the mine hospital, which happens to be the second biggest hospital in the municipality. And so those who needed medical attention could not even, access the hospital. So the police came in and tried to, enforce the law and also ensure that there is order. I've heard that there were gunshots and tear gas, I believe. I'm not sure about the details and what actually triggered that. I'm sure the police, the police unit would be in a position to explain that. Mm-hmm. But I think it's very unfortunate that it happened this way, and we wish whoever got injured the very best. But it shouldn't get to this point, and I see no justification at all for denying workers, the right to go to work and make a living by blocking roads and all of that.
So again, you're saying here that this was not a decision by the workers; it was forced, or quote unquote, it was a forced action by the Ghana Mine Workers Union.
Which decision in particular?
The decision not to work today, because a worker who spoke to us on condition of anonymity claims that the night shift workers decided to lay down their tools, and then the morning shift decided to join them. But here you're telling us the Ghana Mine Workers Union blocked the road, so they couldn't come back from their night shift.
But there were night workers.
Yes.
I'm not sure at what point they decided to drop their tools, but they worked throughout the night. So I'm not sure at what point they decided to lay down their tools. And there were actually workers who were coming to work in buses. So, I mean, if workers had decided not to come to work, they just wouldn't have shown up. But there were workers on buses who were actually coming to work.
Now, there's been yet another armed robbery incident, this time at Kokomlemle in the vicinity of the Multimedia Studios, and indeed not too far from where I'm anchoring the news now. It involved an attack on a mobile money merchant. Though no one was shot or injured, the armed men made away with an unspecified amount of money and left shop owners and businesses in the area terrified. Shortly after that, there was a mobile phone snatching incident in the same area that was foiled, causing bystanders to vent their spleen on the suspect after he was arrested and then released on the spot by a policeman because the victim wasn't interested in pressing charges. My colleague Benis Abubedu has details.
Two separate incidents recorded on the Kokomlemle Newtown Road today. The first one, I'll be taking you to that shop shortly, but the green container behind me just experienced a theft incident. The man who takes care of the shop says he was in an inner room when one gentleman walked in and picked the phone he was charging. Luckily, he was able to stop him, hit him with a plank of wood, and then seize the phone. The police arrested the gentleman, but interestingly, the one whose phone was picked said she wasn't going to file a case. The policeman let the guy go, but onlookers didn't forgive him.
Even the police didn't plan to say, hey, I'm not going to put I'm not saying I'm going to
Second incident, which is more alarming, took place in the shop that I'm taking you to, and this is a shop where mobile money transactions take place. And we are being told by eyewitnesses some armed men visited the shop and took money from the owners at gunpoint. Currently, the shop is locked because the owners are in the police station filing a case.
Hello again, good evening to you. Time now for business. The Food and Beverage Association says some companies in the beverage industry are said to be stranded at the Tema ports following what it describes as frequent breakdown and inefficiency of the tax stamp affixing machine installed there. This machine, which was provided by government, is aimed at affixing stamps on all cigarettes, hard liquor and carbonated drinks imported into the country. Executive Secretary of the association, Samuel Agri, says the development at Tema calls for urgent action.
Some of the producers and importers directed their imports and then the local production to the tax affixing facility at Tema, the old Supply Commission warehouse to be precise. Now what is happening is that the product that has been sent there and the time consuming, if you have a 40-footer container that has to be affixed with stamps, then the challenge is that the time that they will use to affix the stamps will take you almost a day. Sometimes you are not able to get the whole container done, and therefore they have to carry it on to the next day.
And this is just a simple container?
A simple container, because let me use one of the products like the carbonated drinks that comes in the cans. Last Friday, products were sent there. Yesterday, for instance, or let me say Saturday, when they started affixing the stamps, the whole day, only 40 containers, 40 cartons was able to be affixed with the stamps out of the 2,350 cartons. Now, Each container of 40-footer gives you 350 cartons. So if a whole day or half day, you could use only the period to affix 40 cartons of those times. Then it means that if you do your own calculation, what it means is that you need about 4 or 5 days to get one container done, or maybe more. So you ask yourself, all the numerous importers, if we should redirect our stocks there, and especially now that we don't, the local producers or the bottlers are not able to get the machines in place. And as law demands, we need to get the stamps affixed. So the position is that you take your production to that facility to get them affixed. If you look at the slow pace that they are using, then you ask yourself, if you have about 6 companies lined up over there with their production, what then will happen?
Away from that, former chief executive of the Tema Oil Refinery, Dr. Yaw Akoto, is rejecting some suggestions that Ghana's crude oil from the Jubilee and 10 fields should be refined locally for use. He says the quantity of crude emanating from these fields will not be economically prudent to refine in the country. Some analysts in the oil and gas sector have persistently urged the Ghana National Petroleum Corporation, GNPC, to refine its portion of crude lifting in the country, as this would also prevent forex losses.
Last year, Ghana marked 10 years of oil discovery in commercial quantities from the Jubilee field. The expectation was that the resource could significantly transform Ghana's economic condition, especially in the downstream sector where government spends so much to import refined crude for use by the public. There were persistent calls by some industry players as well as the public for government to refine our portion of crude locally. This has, however, been criticized by some other major stakeholders. In an interview with Joy Business, former chief executive of the Tema Oil Refinery, Dr. Yaw Akoto, says the move will not be viable.
Perhaps when we talk about utilization of the crude, just having our own crude does not necessarily mean that we'll get the best efficiency from using our own crude. In a typical refinery, they may use a blend of different crudes. In some refineries, they could use almost up to 100 different crudes, okay, in various blends and so forth, etc. So just having our own crude does not necessarily mean that we have to process it in our own refinery at this time. It will not be economically viable? At this time, I think if you look at the numbers, it doesn't really make sense to process the very light, attractive crude, or what we call sweet crude, in our refinery. And even today in the refinery where we process Nigerian Bonny Light, which is similar to what we get in Jubilee, we don't process that by itself. We sometimes blend with other heavier crude. And in fact, sometimes it's even better to do that so that we can utilize the RFCC more productively.
He spoke on the sidelines of a media launch for this year's Ghana Economic Outlook and Business Strategy Conference in Accra under the theme 10 Years of Oil and Gas, Challenges and Prospects. He also explained what informed the choice of the theme for the occasion.
I believe it's just timely that after the first oil, that 10 years ago we were able to pump oil to the surface. After 10 years, with a lot of activities, we've seen significant production from the various fields, the Jubilee fields, the 10 fields, and more recently the Sankofa field.
The main conference is slated for March 21 here in Accra.
In other stories, commercial banks in the country would from next month start using a new formula for interest rates calculation. The Ghana reference rate is already being described by industry watchers as revolutionary. This is because it is expected to deal with this age-old problem of lack of transparency in the determination of interest rates. The following report gives more details on this reference rate.
Sources say the introduction of this new formula has been influenced by challenges with the current module for interest rate calculations and attempts to move towards a more market-friendly and relevant structure. The Ghana reference rate, which will be influenced by current Treasury bills rate, the Bank of Ghana policy rate, interbank lending rates and inflation rates, will replace the current base rate setting for commercial banks. The new rates will be implemented from April 4 after what the Bank of Ghana is describing as extensive consultations with all the relevant players. It has also been structured in a way that will be reviewed every month and published by every commercial bank.
Now, entrepreneurship is fast gaining popularity in Ghana, serving as a major source of employment for many young people. However, human resource consultant Ama Jampo is advocating the need for what is termed purposeful entrepreneurship among the youth. Karen Dodu has more in this report.
The unemployment challenge is not only synonymous to Ghana, but across the entire globe, especially in developing countries. In recent times, many youth are embracing the need to explore their own ventures through entrepreneurship. In Ghana, many opportunities exist within the fashion, food and technology industries and are fertile grounds for employment. However, HR consultant Ama Jampo and CEO of Amdeco is advising young entrepreneurs to aim at solving societal problems with their skills.
Say start with a problem. I mean, we do a lot of workshops and training and advisory work for corporates. I'm a mentor on for example, the Cosmos Innovation Center program. We always start with the problem first. Once you understand problems and look around you, just look around your community, look around your locality, you'll find there are problems that you can think about how best to apply a solution to. Through technology, especially, I'm an advocate for technology. I'm an advocate for women. Women talk to each other, we understand each other's problems. These are all opportunities that you can start with beyond, the funding, which would come on later, but you can do some clever little things to just communicate and solve a problem and, start small and generate income before you then go on to maybe expand in future.
She adds that there is a need for training skills before becoming an entrepreneur.
It's very difficult to get a good pipeline of talent. The attitudes, punctuality, attitudinal issues, even grooming, just, being ready for the workplace. It's yourself, government is there, but you can't rely on government. Companies are there, you can rely on a job for experience, but you can't really rely on a company for your own personal development. So we're really encouraging independent thought, independent development, and taking charge of all the information that is readily available for you to get to know and understand the real problems, and problems also present the very idea that could be the starting of your startup or idea or company in future.
Amdeco is a business support organization aiming to enroll in 1,000 unemployed graduates in internship programs with partner organizations throughout the country.
And that's all by way of business tonight. Many thanks for watching. My name is Emmanuel Apuaji. We have there's more news ahead. Don't go away.
The bulk oil storage and transportation company boss is fighting off claims that indulged in an illegality in selling of some 1.8 million barrels of crude oil to a company which cost the state some $5.3 million. Bost says it sold the crude to the company, BB Energy, at a discounted price per the market price. It follows claims by the Chamber of Petroleum Consumers, COPEC, that Bost had engaged in a transaction with an unlicensed company. COPEC alleges the breaches occurred at every stage of the value chain. Dankanamwa is Executive Secretary of the Chamber.
When selling, at a time that prices were going up on the world market, Bost was the only company across the world that was selling crude for lower, than the benchmark. At the time prices were going up by the day, it moved from the 50s to 60, it even crossed 70. Bost was the only company across the world that would agree to sell crude at a discount of $2, not $1. The only bit we now realize is that a transactional loss of about $5.4 million would have been occasioned per this transaction alone from Bost and BB Energy. The bit that is also intriguing is that you are selling products in tank at Temoyo Refinery to a company that is not licensed by the NPA. And then you find a sale having been carried out as we speak. Even the amount for $54 that was agreed to be paid, not everything has been settled. 5-6 months down the line. We do not think that if it was a personal company, he would agree to undertake these kinds of transactions. And what you find quite more revealing is that the company BB Energy that buys the product is now refining the product at the refinery. It took Tor a couple of months to find out that the product it was holding had been sold. Has BB Energy paid for the storage, between September and now? Is it paying for it? BB Energy is on record to now be paying Tor a tolling fee of $3.5 when in previous times Tor had done tolling of $5, $5.50. So there are losses across the chain, and we think that the special prosecutor must be interested in this one. IOCO must be interested in this one. The police CID must be interested in this one. Indeed, we are still seeking for much more clarity. We are seeking for people to be punished if indeed reasons for undertaking this transaction that clearly has led to some loss of revenue that could easily have come to Ghana. If these investigations are conducted properly, I am sure people will get punished along the chain.
Boss has, however, described the claims as unfortunate and misleading. A statement from the company states that crude meant for refining, which isn't refined and sold after 10 months, cannot be worth the same official price. This is such a product is considered distressed and always sold at a discount globally. So these are the claims first by the Chamber of Petroleum Consumers. And then Boss describes the statement, the views from COPEC as misleading. It added, it is the norm globally. It is a norm globally to sell at a discounted rate products which are deemed to be distressed. And then it goes on to say that it has followed the necessary procedures in transacting the business of oil in the country and charged the media to ignore the quote-unquote baseless accusations by COPEC. And it further adds, as we speak, we have offers for such distressed cargoes at a discount of $4 per barrel. Any person competent in the industry would have asked for details before issuing this illogical and baseless statement. Another news, the Minister of State in charge of National Security, Brian Acheampong, has justified the decision to evict persons in makeshift structures around the President's Nimi residence. Mr. Acheampong tells Joy News it was proving difficult for security operatives to monitor the movement of people within the area, hence the decision. This follows concerns by some of the affected residents that the compensation paid them is inadequate. National Security has, despite the concerns, given them up to March 15 to leave the area. Some analysts, however, are urging the President to move into the Flagstaff House, which was built in 2007 to serve as a permanent abode for the First Family. But National Security insists the official residence of the First Gentleman should not be a subject of public discourse. Here's some background on why the Flagstaff House was constructed and the issues surrounding the eviction.
The Kanda Estates in Accra, the Flagstaff House was built on the site that in the past served as offices for the British colonial government. It was maintained by Ghana's founding president, Kwame Nkrumah, as his office and official residence, and used by some of his successors. In 2007, the John Agyekum Kufuor administration announced the construction of Jubilee House, which was to replace the dilapidated Flagstaff House and to serve as a befitting office complex and residence for the presidency. His successor, Professor Evans Atta Mills, refused to use the facility, choosing instead to stay at the Osu Castle after he had questioned the cost of its construction to the Ghanaian taxpayer. With an estimated budget of $30 million, figures in the region of $135 to $170 million have since become associated with the structure. Concerns about not using the facility for its intended purpose have emerged since the eviction notice was given to the residents of Nima, where President Akufo-Addo has his private residence. The residents, though unhappy, are demanding adequate compensation.
Mr. Container, me pay the container and container moi, yet 20 Ghana, a fancy 2 million to contain moi. Me come business here, Mamma Dia 36 million, 34, 22, 24 million. I'm crying so many in it. Me no more, and I'm no more yet. Come, Papa, as a crack, I am here. No, Papa, these judges say, men and number and a dream never pay baby answer. Come call us to Panza. Look down, call a member no banner who's member who to say, yes, so my baby, or my baby. What about you say about the son?
I have lived here for about 22 years. And if Nanado wants us to move from here, I have nothing to tell him. But the money we are being compensated with is not enough. And I am a single mother. I have nowhere to go. I'm begging Nanado to wipe away my tears and have mercy. After my husband's death, I have not had much to sell. The little money I get from sales, I used to take care of my 6 children.
Why, because on there. I'm for me behind with no money, some maybe my boy and my pack. So now you bread. Yet to me, yaka. Yet to me, cause got a yes, my it's me, yes, me quite light, me quite container for floor. And you find I'm the container, but give me half a floor. Give me half a floor, so container 45. And then 35, me konya away. Some case me tax has in there. Kulana bla. Who time one the bedroom swam, scabbing or do code juruso. Obey your lights, obey your way. Scan and sushi. Scan and sushi. Yes, Nana. Yes, so, man, name their bread. Their bread.
Right now, we are looking for something. I haven't got the permanent, I haven't got the place. You know, some of their items, they will have to come and collect them, or I have to make some radio announcement so that they come and collect it, or I will show them where I will get. I haven't got any place yet. You get me?
How troubling is the situation for you?
The situation is so many troubles, because the time they gave us was very short.
Now, Minister of State in charge of National Security, Brian Achampong, says eviction is crucial to ensuring the safety of the president. He will not, however, confirm or deny if the president resides in the Flagstaff House or not.
The whole area, all the space, 100 meters around the private residence of the president, Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, is a security zone. And so the state has taken over and is protecting these areas. Now, we have been able to profile all the buildings in and around his residence, but it's become very obvious that the structures around directly in front of the president's residence, we are unable to control the traffic or profile the people that come in and out of that area. So we engaged them. We've been engaging them for some time, and we've come to an agreement that they should leave the area. So that's what it is.
Right.
Now, 7 people have been injured, with hundreds displaced after a windstorm swept through 3 towns in the northern region, destroying schools, homes, and other properties. The affected towns in the region: Wamale in Tamale, Pudia in the Nanumba South, and the Pandai district. In Pudia, 200 people were directly affected by the disaster. About 30 houses and an accommodation facility that houses nurses were also destroyed. At Pandai, students of the Pandai Senior High School were displaced after the storm ripped off roofing of the girls' dormitory. Assemblyman for the Wamale electoral area, Ibrahim Abudu, tells Joy News is overwhelmed by the extent of devastation.
over 500 people have been displaced in this community alone. And some of them are actually putting up with other colleagues, their neighbors around.
Okay, now tell us, this injured, how did it happen?
I'm told they were in their room when the whole roof got removed. In fact, people had to come to their aid and was able to pull them out of the rubble. And some of them is as a result of the zinc that has given one of them, the cut is so deep that as we speak now, the hospital is still finding it very difficult to control the bleeding as we speak now. Actually the injury is as a result of the zinc falling on them while they were sleeping.
Parliament is set to question Procurement Minister Adwoa Safo over claims Maslok Chief Executive Officer Stephen Amwa awarded a 28.8 million cedis contract for the purchase of 1,800 second-hand vehicles from Germany. According to Ashaman MP Ernest Nogbe, the contract, which was awarded to a private firm, Dextro Impex Company Limited, did not go through competitive bidding. He says there was no grounds to have sole-sourced the contracts and that the award is illegal. Ernest Nogbe also claims the Maslok CEO gave the company a letter of comfort to allow them raise funds to execute the contract.
At the time that these contracts were signed at Maslok, there was no board in place. The Maslok board was not in place, but the chief executive alone took it upon himself to do all these things. There were a contract worth of 28.8 million Ghana cedis to procure 1,800 vehicles from Germany, 2011 model. So we need to know, because we are talking of sole sourcing, and we are also talking of corruption. If one single person, Chief Executive Stephen Amwa, can take this particular challenge upon his shoulders to award a contract worth that amount, then we have a cause to worry in this country.
Sometimes the reaction is that the laws allow for sole sourcing, except that the Public Procurement Authority needs to give the necessary approval. Do you have information that even at the level of the PPA, this approval wasn't given, for which you think there may be a problem?
Actually, this approval was not given. PPA cannot even give approval on this particular procurement. Under which condition, under which emergency that they are procuring this thing? Because there are some grounds. There are grounds in Section 40 of the Public Procurement Act that will necessitate you to go in for sole sourcing. This does not fall under any of the grounds there. You are procuring vehicles, 1,800 vehicles. What is the emergency nature about this? Or does it mean that we cannot get these vehicles from various sources in which that you cannot open tender, competitive tendering? So you realize that this does not fall under any of the grounds that will necessitate anybody to go in for sole sourcing. So basically you realize that what is happening, if the chief executive can give a letter of credit, because even the company that they awarded the contract to did not have the financial stamina to undertake this particular project. But the chief executive has given him a letter of credit, a letter of comfort to go and solicit for funds and then procure the vehicles.
Do you suspect this could possibly be grounds for corruption breeding?
It is total grounds for corruption. I need not. I don't need Martin Amidu to tell me this is a ground for corruption.
And in the headlines, Ghanaian wife of Indian businessman forcibly deported by the Ghana Immigration Service protests the conduct of the officers, who she accuses of breaking into their home. Protesting workers of Goldfields accuse management of ordering the military and police to brutalize them during a demonstration over their severance on Monday. Goldfields management, however, says the workers are being manipulated by their mother union and that the security forces only try to stop the destruction of work. Angry mob at the scene of an armed attack on a mobile money merchant at Kokomluni, the Multimedia Studios, vent their spleen on the suspected robber who attempted snatching a mobile phone. In business, Food and Beverage Association complains ineffective tax stamp machines at the Tema Port, delaying process of affixing stamps on some imported products as huge quantity of imported products remain stranded.